Hey everybody, Barry here again. I'm a little bit awkward and nervous right now because my wife is cleaning a car on that side of the camera and she's been giving me funny looks the whole time. But today I'm gonna get the crank ready and put in the engine. Cass, why are you looking at me? Stop looking. And I'm turning red. Okay, crank is going in the engine. Here it is if you haven't seen it. This is the first LS ever that's been painted black. A couple of guys made fun of me and said, why would you make an aluminum block look like an iron block? Usually people try to make an iron block look like aluminum, but it's just my style apparently. Go against the groove, I guess. I've got used bearings, of course, like every LS ever put together. And I'm gonna go put the crank in now. So I'm gonna bomb a little bit of time lapse here because Cass is gonna be vacuuming and using air tools and stuff. So I'm gonna let her do that. And you won't have to hear wah, and the washer's really loud. So just enjoy a little bit of calm, comforting music. Crank is all cleaned up. It looks, yes, it looks. I'm gonna try to get this done before that washer freaks out over there. Yeah, it came out okay. It's got a little bit of rust back here, but that's not a big deal. That's just the mounting flange for the flywheel, or the flex plate, whatever you want to call it. And I'm gonna blow out these passages here for the oil passages, make sure there's no dust or anything in there, because it was standing up right there for a couple of weeks. And let's go put it in the block. At least it'll be a half of a short block. And here are the bearings I'm going to be using. These are the bearings that came out of the aluminum block. These came out of the engine that I took the crank out of. So I'm going to take them all out as pairs and see which bearings are better. Let's take all this and see if I can get a set. Let's see, here's our middle thrust bearings. I'll reuse the crank bolts and all that, or the main cap bolts. I don't care about any of that. So let's check them out. I've made this same face several times. Every time I clean up a part on this engine, I go, I don't know, man. I don't know, man. The last time it was piston rings, this time it was bearings. Okay, so these are the ones that I took out of the iron block 5.3 that I got the crank out of. So these actually aren't terrible. They're kind of shiny, not bad. Then you get over here and you're like, this looks like the bottom of a boat. Like, not into it. I don't know, man. That's got a lot of scratches and a lot of heavy stuff going on there. So then I reached down into handy dandy shelf down there and I was like, oh look, a box of bearings. Maybe some of these will be better. I do have them organized in by the caps here, and actually I think this is what came out of the block. So where did these bearings come from? I will get one good set of bearings here. No big deal. I hope this engine doesn't knock like the washer does. Actually, that sounds like when I break ring lands. Old Moffat took too much boost. I've picked out the best thrust bearing
that I have there. This one's actually not that bad. Now I gotta pick out the best bearings that I have. None of them are very good. This one here's pretty good actually. Let's take that one. So we've got 2 bearings. I'll take this one. I bet these are, the good ones are from that engine that I scrapped for the crank. So we have 2, we need 2 more sets. Man, like how wiped out are some of these bearings? This one has a little bit of stuff in it. It's not great. That's a candidate. That's 3. Just give me 1 more half decent bearing that I can use. Kind of shiny, got a couple lines in it. It's actually rough up here. You can see right there, it's quite rough and it's pitted. Am I really gonna have to buy new bearings? That's gonna suck. Oh boy, let's beat them all up while we're here, I guess. The discoloration on it is annoying, but it doesn't seem to be real rough or anything. So maybe that's not that bad. What's this one like? That one's got some scratches. Well, that'll do. We've got 5 bearings. Just imagine if there was a tool made that I could check the clearances on these, like a measuring tool, or even something that I could put in between here to squish it and see how wide. If anybody comes up with something like that in the near future, let me know, will you?
I've said it like 3 times now, but it's actually time to put the crank in the engine. So let's go do that. Oh wait, I gotta clean up the main caps first.
Okay, now it's ready to go in. I've got my Lucas heavy duty assembly lube. This stuff is amazing. One thing that I noticed that I'm not really fond on is look down here into this hole. There. And there, how it's an oil passage, you can clearly tell. You can see right down there. And then look at this one. Was the block machined incorrectly? Has anybody seen that before? I almost feel like driving a drill bit down there just to open that up, because why? Why is 1/3 or maybe 1/4 of this hole blocked off? Things that make me nervous. Volume 1. Well, onto the assembly. All right. Let's take our assembly lube and just kind of bury it on there. I'm not going to get it on these surfaces here because I don't want any oil squished between the mounting surfaces. And while that's just there doing its thing, I'm going to lay the crank in carefully. It's very heavy. Now let's do this without breaking anything the first time. So I'm just going to let it sit there. Pick it up. Oh, I took the whole bearing out. Nice. Oh, that's just deadly, isn't it? Why you do these things to me? Okay, now we'll spin it, I guess. Well, that poor washer's making some freaky sounds. Let's just pop those bearings back down where they go. There you go, back down in your groove. I'm not touching the edge that the crank rides on, of course. Okay, a little more oil there. I'm going to get some on the mounting surface for sure. I'm just trying not to. I'll wipe it off after. This stuff is like glue, man. I just like to use this because it's really, really thick. And it's not just going to run away from the bearings before I get a chance to fire it up, which could be weeks, could be months, may not be, hopefully not anyway. Man, the crank is glued in. Okay, we've got lots of oil on it. I'm actually going to glob some over here on the side too, because that's where the thrust bearing surface is, so I'll spin the crank a couple more times with that on there. To make sure that the thrust bearing is lubed up. Let that sit in there. Alright. That's great. That's one step that I forget every time, is to lube up the thrust bearings. Have I ever caused damage to it? I don't know. Here's a step-by-step on how to build an engine backwards, the wrong way, backwards maybe. And here we have number 5. I actually had to consult my own video on which way these main bearings go, these caps. Now let's use spiky boy to tap these down. That's it. I may be the only engine builder who uses a prospecting hammer to put in main bearing caps. Now this time I will remember. Thick, stringy liquid. You know what I call this? Progress. So cool. I got the crank in and it rotates. The last engine that I made, well, I built for the rat rod, it actually didn't rotate. I had to put a pipe wrench on right here and give it a crack, and then it would rotate, and as soon as I let go, it would stop again, and I would not be able to turn it. Turned out I had the main cap on backwards, but that's not an issue here. Look at this. So smooth. This Lucas assembly lube, that is the absolute gear. The labeling is not great, but, oh, hey, who am I to complain? Now, I can do the rear cover because the crank is on, installed, whatever. Here's a rear cover kit. This includes the rear cover gasket and a rear crank seal for the LS engines. All of them from 7-liter back to 4.8. BS40640 is the Felpro number. I've never had an issue with one of these leaking. There's always a rear main seal leaking in LS, but this has actually never let me down, so I like using them. Plus, we sell them here at Carquest, so I keep them in stock. My rear cover is down here. I sandblasted it. I didn't paint it. I'm actually not going to paint it because, well, hey, it's clean. It doesn't need to be painted. Nobody's ever going to see it again. So this is sort of just a clean up and bolt on sort of deal here. But does it need to be cleaned? Nah. I'm just kidding. Don't start a witch hunt yet. New rear crank seal is in. New rear gasket. Everything is nice and clean. I cleaned it up very well. I like these new these pieces that Velcro puts in there to align the rear crank gasket. That's freaking sweet. It actually centers it up and locates it really well, so you're not going to be putting the cover on squish or whatever. It's all bolted in. Woo! And I forgot to hit record on the time lapse, but you didn't miss much excitement. But the real excitement is gonna go directly in there. Ooh, it's cam day. Okay, alrighty. Watch out, Springs. I know you're under here somewhere. I know it's here somewhere. There it is. This is the Chihuahua Chunky Boy Stage 2. The Stage 3 is in the rat rod. This is, you know, the Elgin Sloppy Stage 2. Let's open it up. The first cam I ever put in the rat rod, or in any engine ever actually, was a, what do we call it? A Cam's Magnum 280H. Part number is 12212-2. And Cass called me one day and she said, "Your cam came in, but I have to tell you something." And my heart sank. She said, "I dropped it. And I broke the lumpy part off." I was like, why would you do that to me? Why would you joke about that? I've dropped the turbo on video once. I really don't want to drop a cam on video. All right, let's check this out. Here is the cam card, E1840P. This is really heavy and awkward. 585 lift, intake and exhaust. Where's the advertised duration? 228, 230. Not too excessive. Sound really good. Not going to have to do an insanely high stall converter. But working on the converter thing. Some excitement coming for that in the future, hopefully. And for now, we're going to put this bump stick in. And I'm going to cut that cam card out and put it on the wall with the other one. So excited. I can't believe cam day is here. This is the best. All cleaned up. I wrapped this in a rag here so when I clean these off with the spray it wouldn't make a big mess or anything. Yeah, I should have wiped that off I suppose, but I will. Chain is cleaned up. This is pretty much just used stuff. I found a 1X front cam gear in an engine that I scrapped, so that's perfect because I'm going to change over this Gen 4 to Gen 3 electronics. You can see here we have a 24X crank reluctor. So I'll put the black 24X crank sensor in here. The 1X front cam gear works with either the 4X or the 1X cam sensor. I just got to switch a couple wires. And then this will, for all purposes, be a Gen 3 red blue 0411 PCM engine. Let's go put it in. Now, I'm going to try not to make an absolutely huge mess here. That doesn't mean I'm going to be successful in that. But I will still try. Now how am I going to get oil on those cam bearings, I wonder? So what I'm going to do is take a little bit of oil, put on, yep, that's the back cam lobe, or bearing lobe, or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to put some of this nice sticky gooey stuff all over the back of that, glob a little bit more in there. What I like to do is put the cam into the bearing, and you'll see there's the cam lobe there. What I like to do then is put a bit more oil on that. And this might be unnecessary, it might be overkill, but I want to make sure that I don't have the cam go in there dry. Here's the next bearing lobe, and every lobe is going to have oil on it by the time I'm done. Okay, so we'll line it up, and both go in pretty much the same time. Just going to give that a quick spin. And now we'll see the next one come through. And a lot of that oil is going to stick. It's going to stay pretty much where I put it. And there's the next one again. I don't mind wasting a bit of this stuff. It's not a big deal, because I'd rather have way too much on there. Definitely rather have way too much on there. Give it another little spin. And now you can see right down through this lobe right here, this lifter bore, you can see the rear cam lobe again. Like I said, I'm sure somebody's going to come in and say, why did you waste your time doing that? But I'd much rather do it this way and not have any dry bearings at all. That's going to lube up that cam bearing on the rear and the second rear one. And I'm not concerned about putting this oil down in the lifter bores because I coat the lifters in it too. So, and coming back up front here again, I'm going to put some more oil on the lobes. I'm going to put some more on that one. Swish it around back here. I know you can't see what I'm doing there, but I'm sure by now you get the idea. Let's put that cam in nice and square. Try not to whack things. A little bit more. Everything in here is nice and lubricated now. And now through this rear hole down here, we can see the rear cam lobe. And now I can put a nice liberal amount on there because that rear cam bearing is dry. I just wanted to see if I can get something to puddle up down there. I think it might have worked. Now I'm just going to grab a bolt. Oh, I forgot to put some oil on this front. That wouldn't have been very good, would it? Front cam bearing dry. But there's still lots of that real sticky oil on the bearing itself anyway, so no big deal. Let's get that to go right in there. Mint, look how stringy that stuff is. That's wild. How exciting is that? I do have to line the crank up so that it'll be dot to dot. It's actually off right here. And I think that's actually supposed to be at 3 o'clock. So we'll find out after anyway when I go to put the cam gear on. I'm gonna go put the cam gear and the chain and that on now. I don't have a tensioner, or I don't have the plastic guide, but the Gen 3 engines didn't use one anyway, so I'm not really concerned. But if I can find one of those plastic guide things, I will use it. I'm not gonna use the automatic tensioner because they're junk and they always break. Up next is arguably one of the most important parts to putting this engine to replace, and nobody does it. I'm talking, of course, about the cam plate. So here is the camshaft plate. For anybody who doesn't know offhand, the cam goes in right here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 bolt holes, and you can see that Q-tip shaped spot right here that allows oil to come out through this side of the engine, through the lifter bores, across here, and then back through all the rest of the lifter bores. If this gasket leaks, it'll spray oil pressure out through here into the rest of the engine. It won't leak, but you'll spray oil everywhere inside your engine, instead of where it's supposed to go, which is to the lifters. So you'll have a lot of lifter noise, you'll have low oil pressure issues, but it can be impossible to find or difficult to find because it's not leaking outside the engine. The reason you have to replace this is because when it's installed in the factory, this gasket, as you can see, the orange part here is raised. You can see that the gasket itself is higher than the plate. When you unbolt your cam gasket, your plate gasket, this will be 100% flat. There will be no resistance there whatsoever. There'll be no sealing surface left, and it's going to leak oil pressure. How much it's going to leak? Who knows? It might leak some of it. It might leak all of it. So spend the extra little bit of money and replace it. And it comes with new bolts with blue Loctite on it, so that's kind of cool. I'm just going to give this a quick wipe down to make sure there's no oil going to be in between the plate and the block here. I don't think it would push the plate off the surface of the block, but it is possible. And we don't need that. And I just laid my torque wrench on top of the engine and got it full of oil. Good time. All right. And I ran a tap through every threaded hole on this block. So the only thing now adding any resistance is the blue Loctite. I just about had some bolts in there, and I just thought about, it's recommended, I don't know if it's required, but to dab a little bit of oil on the thrust surface of the cam. And the front of that cam is actually wet anyway. But I'm just going to put a little bit around there. And when I draw the cam out, then that oil is going to squish up against this thrust surface here. And, oops, I already got one in there. And that's going to lubricate the front of that until the engine gets oil pressure, I guess. Or for whatever reason they do this. But anything that's moving or rubbing together, it's nice to have oil on there anyway. All right, clickety-click these up to 18 foot-pounds. I think I'm gonna go left, right, up and down. This 1, 2, and then go on the top, so we've got our gasket surrounded. 3, 4. And I'm just going to double check them all. All torqued up. And I'm just going to screw a couple of bolts in here. Just bring that out and rub up against the cam plate. And there's actually oil running out of the bottom of it anyway, so we know for sure that it's lubricated. Next up, cam gear and chain. So I'm going to put these dot to dot. You can see that, I don't know if you can see it, right there. It's kind of hard to see, but I'm going to put that one straight up. If I can find a spot to grab a hold of the crank. And that is pretty well straight up. The dimple you can see is right on this side of this tooth, right there. Put the chain on our gear here. Find the notch, and yeah, it's at 3 o'clock. I'm just gonna spin this cam over real quick. I'm trying not to get in the way, but then I'm always in the way. So this might take a try or two. But usually I can get it in the first couple tries. Okay, what do we got? Right there. We're actually off a little bit. off just a little bit. We can see that the notch is over here where it's supposed to line up with that dot on the crank right there. So my tooth off. I had too much stuff in my hands. That's one issue I always have, is way too much stuff in my hands. I don't think that made it any better at all. Let's go one more tooth. Yeah, there we go. Now we've got it lined up right there to there. Dot to dot. Now I'm just gonna screw one bolt into here, rotate that cam a little. Will it go in there? Is the question. Why is it being contrary? Am I gonna force it in there? No. Am I gonna persuade it a little bit? Maybe. I'm not gonna go tighten up that bolt with an impact gun or anything. Let's just see if it will pull in there. Oh yeah, minimal effort. Looks like it's going in. Sometimes it just needs to settle a little bit. There we go. Sometimes they just fall right into place. Other times, you gotta let them sit in there a little. Now for the crazy part. This takes 26 foot-pounds, which doesn't seem like a lot. Oh, I suppose I should stop the crank from rotating, shouldn't I? Okay. I got an old chunk of wood put in by the crank. 26 foot-pounds. 1, 2, 3, and double them up. 1, 2, and 3. 26 foot-pounds doesn't seem like a lot, but when you've got a bar that's like 18 inches long, then you know you can apply a bit of torque to that. All right, I'm going to rotate it around just to be sure that we come right back to dot to dot. That's funny, isn't it? Oh yeah. I was like, why won't it rotate? What have I done wrong? I forgot my handle was still in by the crank. All right, so let's rotate it. I'm gonna give it one more. Where is that dot gonna be? And right there. Deadly. Dimple is right here. Dimple is right there. This chain has some slack on it. Wow, it does have some slack. Good OLS stuff. It reminds me of small block days. But if I can find this guide here, I will use it. Just because for extra good measure, more assembly lube. Barry, you're wasting so much of that stuff. Well, I'd rather spend 20 bucks on a bottle of this than, you know, another however many dollars rebuilding it. Man, that stuff is so thick. I don't know if you guys remember the old thing that every gas station, every mechanic shop had, where it was like on the left to be like conventional motor oil, and you twist the little thing and it'd be a bunch of gears and you could see how the oil worked and how thick it was. And then over on the Lucas side, it had the same thing. And the Lucas would actually climb all the gears. Somebody's got to remember that. Look at that. Look how thick that is. God, I hope my engine doesn't sound like that. That's hilarious. All right, so just for good measure, let's set this thing back to dot, assuming I can see the dot. I don't seem to be able to. Yep, there it is. We're good to go. That chain is so slack. My God.
This is delicious. We have a cam and a crank in an engine in one video. Usually it'll take me 14 videos, each one dedicated to torquing down one single bolt. I mean, I'm not that slow, but I can be at times. So I'm going to finish it up here. It's going to be a little bit funny for the next couple of weeks, a little bit of slower progress, nothing serious, but I'm doing a lot of renovations at home. And I'm not going to be filming that because this isn't Station Road home renos. Unless somebody wants to see it, maybe I'll post a picture or something like that. But coming up soon, hopefully I will have a frame for Desperado. It is, you would not believe how ridiculous it is to try to find a good frame from a GMT 800 truck. It's almost impossible. I would love to have another Cadillac frame or an Avalanche frame, something with coil springs in the rear, but I'll take what I can get. If I can get a frame that's decent front to back, I'm going to take it. I do have a two-wheel drive frame, but I'm not planning on giving up on the all-wheel drive aspect, so that's it. I am getting an all-wheel drive frame somewhere. Anyway, enough rambling. I'm going to finish it up here and go home and run some electrical through my attic. Wish me luck. So thanks for checking out the channel. Thanks to my YouTube members, patrons, and subscribers. If you want to check out my Patreon, it's patreon.com/stationroadratrods. My YouTube members link is down here. And thanks for watching. Have a great day, everybody.